Hello everyone, my name is Ryan Griffin. You can call me Griff, and I've been rigging characters and working as a technical animator in the video game industry for 20 years. At least on 3 occasions, I've been asked to create a rigging framework for different studios. Sometimes, though, when you enter a studio, you've only got a few weeks to get started, and so there's really not enough time to create a whole rigging framework or rigging tool set in that instance. And so I think it's an okay thing to rely on existing tools in order to get the job done. And one of my favorite tools for rigging when in a pinch is MGear. MGear is open source, which means you get all the code uncompiled, so you can add your own modules, and really edit the code in any way you need in order to serve the project that you're working on. So today I wanted to just take a look at MGear and help you get started real quick, because when I first opened it, it can be a little confusing. MGear works in Maya, so for those of you trying to learn Maya rigging or Maya animation, this might be a good place for you to start to get some ideas. Or if you just want to quickly rig up your own characters because you're an animator, then MGear might be the choice for you. You can download MGear right here. This is github.com MGear. This is the downloads page. And when you download MGear, you're just going to get a little package. It's going to have a drag and drop installer. And you can go ahead and put that, drag that installer right into Maya, and it'll install everything into your default modules folder. If you're not familiar with your modules folder, that's usually under your username, documents, Maya, and modules. Modules is a default place for Maya to look for tool sets. You can override this behavior using your environment variable by declaring the Maya module path, as you've seen I've done right here in order to add my own custom tool set, which also includes MGear. If you have any troubles getting this installed, just send me a message and I'll see if I can help you out. So once that's there's a couple things you need to do, and one of those is just going to be making sure that your plugins for MGear are installed. You can do that by going to Windows, Settings and Preferences, and Plugin Manager. And when you open this up, there's just 2 plugins that you're going to need. And it's worth noting that if you want to share your MGear rig with someone, you don't really need them to install MGear, although I do recommend it because it comes with a lot of great tools to help with animation. You just need to make sure that they have at least the MGear Solvers plugin. The weight driver is useful if you're going to use their deformers, but not really necessary. All right, so for this, I decided to take this little model I made in Nomad Sculpt on my iPad. Looks like Gudetama. And I'm going to show you a few different ways we can rig this up. I'll also be trying to post these videos in sections as shorts and on TikTok. So if you're seeing that there, just look for the series, because I'll probably be splitting this up into 3-minute sections, as some of those platforms only allow 3-minute uploads. Otherwise, I'm trying to go as fast as I can. So there's a couple ways you can get started. You can build this thing entirely from individual modules, and that's what these are, right? These are just Python scripts that have instructions for one part of the body, like an arm or a chain or a leg. Another option is that if you go into MGear, you can actually bring in an entire guide template sample. Now, I know Gudetama looks like an egg, but he's still kind of a biped, so we might be able to get away with using something like that. If you're going to be bringing this into Unreal Engine, then they've already got some templates here that are super useful to get that started. So here we have like the mannequin template with Y up. And if I go ahead and click this, it's going to build that template. Once this rig is done, I will be posting it on griffinmore.com absolutely for free, obviously, because I can't sell Gudetama. But you can find a lot of resources here if you're into VTubing or Unreal Engine, or just really anything related to bringing characters to life on your screen. Worth noting, you can also find me on Twitch, or you can check out my Gumroad store where I keep other assets. Okay, so you can see once I press that, I get this cool biped template. This is what I consider the layout. These little objects here, you can move around to place them to fit your character. And then once we're all done, we can go ahead and build that. But there's a few details I should point out to get you started quickly with MGear. Okay, I went ahead and sized my guy up here because he's a little big. Now, this is tricky. I haven't tried this exact idea before, where I take a biped and I scale it up. And I use it for something that's kind of laying down like this, but we're going to give it a shot and see how it goes. So, and mind you, it might be overkill because there's quite a lot here, and I'll show you how to remove some of this stuff and get this working for a character like this. So the first thing I might do is just scale this whole entire thing down. You can do that by grabbing the guide right here. That's the root of the entire guide, and just go ahead and scale it. Pretty much everything in here can be scaled, moved, rotated. I do have some recommendations when it gets to like fingers and stuff, that you don't necessarily move these, but you kind of like zero out the rotations if you want the fingers to be straight, and rely mostly on rotations for fingers, or you might get some weird behavior. The other thing to keep in mind is MGear has these blades, and this is going to kind of indicate the plane on which this limb is going to be built. So when we're talking about IK, we consider that the wrist rotation is going to be based around how this plane is oriented. So that's something you also want to keep in mind. So right off the bat, I can say that we're probably not going to need fingers. We're probably not going to need clavicles, but we could leave them in if we wanted a little more flexibility in that motion. So it's okay to just go ahead and delete these. And honestly, what I do to get started is I delete pretty much everything on the right side of the body of the character. So we can get rid of all these limbs, because we can try to place them symmetrically. There's really nothing built in to handle symmetrically placing these things, but you can duplicate them symmetrically, which means that once you finish up the left side, you can just move everything over to the right. Maybe somebody knows better than I do, but that's the way I've been handling it. So next thing I'm going to do is grab the body. And that's kind of the root of the pelvis and the spine and all that stuff. And I'm just going to shove it down in here just like that. And I'm going to think about where sort of my pelvis is on this character. And put this in this mode and kind of look at the wireframe here. There we go. And you can see how I kind of split this right around this edge. That's what I was imagining being the pelvis. So if I get this aligned kind of in the center of that, we should be doing pretty good. Put this layer back into template mode so I can see my spine. So some controls, you know, are like the parent of others. So you see these two right here are actually going to be, well, actually this one right here is going to be a tangent. So this is sort of an IK FK spline. And these tangent positions are going to let you sort of IK adjust the bend of the spine. So what I'm thinking is to grab these and do something, you know, kind of like this. Make sure that the top of the spine is going to align roughly with where the arms are. So maybe a little more down like this. Grab the top of the spine and get this in here. And I'm just going to run through real quick and lay out all these objects and then pop right back in to continue. A quick note as I'm laying these out. Again, I am trying to zero rotations. I'm trying to zero translations except for X. I don't know if this is 100% necessary, but I've gotten better results this way than just like grossly grabbing this and moving it. So that might just be something worthwhile as you're building out your rig to consider. Right, so I've got all these laid out like so. Laying out joints is an art form of its own. After 20 years, I've picked up what I think works and what doesn't work, but it's going to be up to you to sort of figure out what works best for you. So I deleted the foot, I deleted the fingers, I deleted some of the stuff I don't need. These objects here, these are the UI. So this is basically where you're going to find your settings for like your arm, your leg, your spine, and your head. You can place these wherever you want. In fact, you can parent them under your limbs. So for instance, if you wanted the arm to follow, or the arm UI to follow the actual arm, that is something you could just grab this and drag it up and parent it, or just select that, select your clavicle or whatever you want to attach it to and hit P, and that's going to parent it under there. Or you can leave them out in front here if that's more your thing. You just want to see them visible in front of the character. That's completely valid. Okay, so every module has settings. So for instance, we have a head module here. It's going to have like 2 neck joints and a head joint. If we select that module, we can hit settings here. We can see that it's called neck. We can actually have it parent to a lower spine by clicking this parent joint index and picking the index of the spine joint you want it to follow. We can see here that host I was talking about, that's your UI controller. So if this is an IK FK head module, You'll be able to do your switching and everything from there. You can also go in here and configure your joint name. So if you don't like the way that MGear is naming your joints, right now it's trying to use Unreal's naming convention, which is generally pretty good for me. But if you create something like your own custom chain, you might want to go in there and specify what those names are supposed to be. You can also say if this is a center module, left or right. If it's left or right, you'll be able to mirror it across the center of the character. And then if you come into here, well, you can also, edit the default colors and stuff in here. If you come into here, there's more options like how soft is the sort of IK spline. You can say how far can it stretch, what's the maximum squash, how many divisions are in here, right? You can even set your IK reference array or your head reference array. So both of those things are going to have an IK handle and an IK control. And these are the space switches you can add to it. You can even see in here a squash and stretch profile if you want to change sort of the curvature, how extremely the head squashes and stretches. So all this stuff is in here and it's available for every module. In this case, I'm not really going to change much of this, as I think this is probably going to work okay for this demonstration. And then if you wanted to kind of define the default naming convention for your head and neck joints, you can go ahead and type something in here, and then it's just going to iterate over that, like neck 01, neck 02. So I think default settings are pretty good here. Another thing I want to point out is that if you select the guide itself, it also has settings, right? And it's got a lot of good stuff in here, and I think this goes unrecognized sometimes. So you can even, like if you had saved your skinning, MGear has a skinning, let me just find it, sorry. Skin and weights, you can export a skin pack in binary or ASCII and have that auto load when you rebuild your rig. One of my favorite things is this custom steps. So you can add pre-steps or post-steps. So if there's a lot of modifications you want to do to this rig after it's built, you could script all that out in Python and save that as a file and then add a post custom steps right here. And that will run after the rig is done building. You also got naming rules if you want to change kind of the conventions of this stuff, left, right, and center. You see LRC. Joint naming, lowercase l, lowercase r. So these are all things that you can edit before building the rig. But I think I'm pretty happy with just the defaults in this case. So the next thing I want to do is, since I went ahead and I deleted the the right limbs, I can grab like the left arm and I can say duplicate symmetrically. Bam. And it's just going to swing it over to the other side. Do the same thing here. Bam. And there you go. You pretty much have your entire layout object ready to go. Now, in my case, maybe I have this yoke here. There's joints I wanted to add outside of there. I could make a whole separate rig with a whole separate guide, or I could attach, to the root of this character, some joints that I could use to deform this. In my case, I'm probably going to try to do something a little dynamic if I were to pursue this down the road. So that's not really necessary. You will see, though, that MGear also has a lot of stuff for handling dynamics and springs and all kinds of stuff. So really get in here and explore these menus. I will probably come back with future videos to cover some of this stuff, however, so stay tuned for that. Okay, another thing you can do is you can build each module individually, and the MGear website recommends this. If you're trying something new, or you're just not sure, like for instance how this leg is going to be oriented, then you can build that by itself. Like in my case here, I can see, oh, maybe this is a little too straight and my IK is going to be a little wonky. So I can try building that out and just see. And you can see, yeah, my pole vector kind of flipped over here. A lot of times that can be because your chain is not straight, or it could be that it's just like too straight in this plane, and so it doesn't know exactly where to place the IK. That's not a problem though. If you don't like it, you can go up to here, Shifter, Game Tools, Delete Rig, Keep Joints if you want to keep the joints. You see here it did keep the joints. I can delete those if I don't want to use them. So one thing I can do to help make sure this leg is straight is select, for instance, the knee. And actually we're going to delete this whole module. We're going to move over to here. I can grab this knee, and you see here, translate X, Y, and Z. X is the kind of downward plane here. So if I zero out Y and Z, that'll help me make sure that this thing is 100% straight. Here I can grab this bottom one, do the same thing. bam. And I can see that this, I didn't pay much attention when I was putting this down, so it's kind of off-centered this way. And I might want to kind of rotate this down just a little bit more and rotate that one up a little bit more so I get more of a bend in the knee here. Let's try that again. Yeah, and we get a pull vector that's much more aligned with what we actually want. Okay, so if we're happy with the whole thing, we just go all the way up, grab the top guide, and get rid of this thigh joint real quick, and then build from selected. Give that a little bit of time, and bam, you got a rig. Pretty cool. If we hide our guide here, we can go ahead and start manipulating these things, and we'll see that we get all the rig behavior we desired. Sorry, that's a little funky right there. Sorry, guys. Yeah, so it's all here. You know, you got your roots, you got your COG, you got everything you could possibly need for this character ready to go. So in the next step, we do some skinning, and we'll fix up some things here. You see, like, these are IK joints that you would use in Unreal if you're using weapons or something and you want to use Unreal's IK system. So those are things, generally I take these and I parent them to my wrists. I just do a parent constraint, and that way, no matter where I end up moving those wrists, they will stay there, and so they'll just build correctly. You can also see I forgot to mirror my leg over, but that's all good. So in the next part of this video series, I will continue on. I'll show you how I skin things. After years and years of skinning things, I think I have a pretty good system that will get you there quickly. I know a lot of people struggle with that, so hopefully I can give you some tips and tricks that will get you there faster. All right, thanks for joining me, and be sure to check me out, Griffin Moore, on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and even on Twitch if you want to see me do work like this live. We are currently working on a video game in Unreal Engine, and I'm using MGear to rig a lot of those characters. So if you're interested in any of those aspects of video game production, be sure to stop by. I'm streaming most mornings, and we'll catch you in the next video.